UnDaoDu to you and yours here from my, what do they call this? Well, place where Sadhu lives, parsonage in Florida. I am social distancing myself as the coronavirus is raging, and I want to talk about a simple idea for you to think about this morning. A simple question: are you a victim of the universe, or are you the universe? That's the question I want you to think. Now, I have a Twitch account where I play Alan Watts pretty much 24/7, and I talk about Alan Watts. I take his teachings. He's a teacher. I am not a teacher. I am not your master. I'm just a sadhu. I'm a one who expresses the do, a sadhu, to say the do, to express the do. So let's analyze this question. Am I a victim of the universe, or am I the universe itself? How would Jesus, how would Muhammad, how would all the great teachers, how would, even if you look at Mahatma Gandhi, how would these individuals, Martin Luther King, how would Malcolm X, how would individuals have answered this? How would Alan Watts have answered this question? So before we answer the question, let's take a rollback onto what is the universe. Let's define the terms. Let's take a Platonian type of analysis to this, right? So the universe, you have to ask, first we have to define whether you believe in it or not, right? The universe. Do I believe in the universe? Well, obviously there are stars, there is stuff out there. So obviously the universe is something that exists. When did the universe start? What created the universe? Okay, now that's the second thing. Now, you can say God created the universe, 6,000 years ago when they created man, right? Was the universe, older than that? Even if you look at the Old Testament, right? You can look in there and see that 7 days. But what are 7 days in universal days, right? What does that mean? Then there was light. The light would have been the un. So we know the Big Bang, even in the Bible, talks about the Big Bang because you go, then there was light, right? That would have been the energy, right? The Tao event. So we can look at, we're spending trillions of dollars on this thing called the Hadron Collector, right? Hadron Collider, trillions of dollars in researching and banging these atoms back. Why are they spending trillions of dollars in banging atoms at each other? Because they're trying to get to the near energy of the beginning of the universe, which now they've calculated to some 13.8 billion years ago, right? So 13.8 billion years ago, there was an event, okay? So the next thing is, all right, let's just take science on this. There was an event 13.8 billion years ago. You are an expression of that event. That event hasn't stopped. That event is still basically happening, right? So you can say then your origin was that very event. Okay, if you think your origin was that event, then you are the universe. If you think that all this event that happened before the 13.8 trillion, because we've only been around, listen, on a 24-hour scale clock, less than the last second, right? So it's funny because we've had all this time and here we are, awoke. We've awoke. And ultimately, you have to put yourself into your shoes on what is it that that you feel, right? Because when you start to realize that you are that event, you are just the consciousness that allows you to analyze yourself, right? Like going into, psychotherapy or whatever. You can go into psychotherapy to and Alan Watts does a great analogy of that, right? Are you make yourself mad by choosing to go there, or is it there to solve it, right? Are you defining yourself? How you define yourself ultimately defines who you are. So if you define yourself as a victim of the earth or victim of your situation, a victim of it, then you ultimately become that thing that you define yourself. If you define yourself as I am, right? I am the universe, because that moment of the event is my birth. Okay? If that event hadn't happened, nothing else would have happened after that, right? The line of it. Then you are the universe. You're the consciousness. And if you want to take it a step forward, imagine everything is in this unstate, right? This state of quantum entangled stuff, right? This fifth element, this stuff, right? You are a product of that stuff. You are just an expression of that stuff. That stuff is you. So, when you start to analyze the universe that way, then you start realize that you are the universe. Everything else is really a distraction. I mean, from birth to death, from the ward where you're born to the place where you're buried, right? That little minute bit of space we get so hung up on, right? This little bit of this minute in the sense of time. If you think now, I've been around billions of years, not in a state, obviously in the state of consciousness, and then you have to say, well, what is consciousness? This ego that I have. This ego I have is nothing more than my genetics, right? Which is this evolution of animal to live, to my society. Am I born into a Christian society, into a Hindu society, into a Sikh society, whatever? Because the society defines us based on our experiences. And those are the UnDaoDus, the three things that define who we are. So once you start to break away and shatter these preconceived elements, you have to go back to that very question. Am I a victim of the universe, or am I the universe? And the answer is, you are the universe. You are Jesus. You are Muhammad. You are the Dalai Lama. You are Buddha. And when you start to realize that all these fractoids, these personalities, all these individuals ultimately are an echo of that very origin, that very event, okay? Then you start the process of awakening. And when you basically become one in that knowledge, then you are awoken. So the unawoke, the awakening, the awoke, right? So UnDaoDu, to you and yours. I am UnDaoDu, staring at the summer wind, the coronavirus, Black Lives Matter movement, the collapse of the fourth age, which we are now in the process of with all the events, the collapse of fiat, the collapse of the dollar, the collapse of all this stuff, which other people have been talking about, now is happening, right? Before it was in a state of unness, now it's in a state of happening. The state of the event is unfolding. And we're in the modern dark ages. And we have to change. So one thing to do is when you are awoke, you realize like all this nonsense, I will go out and vote, I will go participate, but I laugh at it all because it's all just a game. So be safe, be good, be awoke. UnDaoDu.